3. The Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did to Sarah as he had promised. And Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age at the time of which God had spoken to him. Abraham called the name of his son who was born to him, whom Sarah bore him, Isaac.
Good morning, church, and happy Mother's Day. So many have said so far today. It's a beautiful day to be together to celebrate mothers. I see quite a few flowers around the building, and that's always beautiful as well. But what does it take to be a mother? I want to talk about 3 major life events in a mother's life. The first one we're going to talk about is when the child is brought into this world. The next one we're going to talk about is the rearing of the child. And the final one, the one we normally try to avoid, is when we have to say goodbye to our mothers. But these are all major events in a mother. And because a mother's love is so incredibly great, these 3 are very, very impactful. So what does it take to be a mother? Chris Hadfield, a Canadian astronaut, was taking off to the International Space Station, and he described what was happening, and it fits in so well with what I think it is like to be a mother. He says, as you get strapped down and you're in that rocket and you're about to lift off, you feel all of a sudden this incredible noise. I mean, the noise is so heavy, your head's about is split. And when you think, well, that's the worst thing that can ever happen to you, you start to understand that this is not even close to what's happening, because everything around you has this incredible vibration. And the vibration feels like it's going to pull your body in two. And then when that is so big that you don't even know that the noise is there anymore, something else starts to happen that makes the vibration vanish into complete insignificance. Tremendous pressure comes on you. And it's so heavy you feel like you're going to pass out. And about at that moment, fear engulfs you as this whole area around you is engulfed in a fireball. And it becomes incredibly, incredibly hot. And you can't think about anything else except that and that you're about to pass out. And it's at that moment that you escape the gravitational pull of the earth. And you have this incredible weightlessness. And this is what he said, and just reading from, he's writing secondhand here, it says, instead of lapsing into unconsciousness, he broke into laughter. He broke into laughter. That's the only reaction you can have when things are so very bad. You can think about a mother in the process of bringing a child into this world, and then all of a sudden, it's okay. You can think about a mother as she's raising children, and there's so much that goes on with that, and you get a point where you think you cannot take anything more, and then everything's okay. You think about a mother in hospice just holding on, and the pressure and the vibration and the noise and everything in that environment, and then all of a sudden, the weightlessness as you free from this world. And what we don't see this side of the veil is the laughter on that side. So I want you to go with me today. We'll start in Genesis. We'll start with a young lady called Sarah. And we'll see the first lesson as you look at the birth process, as you look at the first thing that you need to, as mothers, instill in your children is the promise of God. You know, sometimes when we are disappointed, when life doesn't work out like what we should, we say, promises, promises, promises. Here is a lady who was promised a child. But go back to when she's just a little girl. She's just a teenage girl. She's not even married yet, Gideon. Probably the arrangement is there, but she's probably not married yet. And she's Sarai, and she's not marrying Abraham, father of many nations. She's just marrying Abram, just father. But he looks like a good guy. He looks like he's very stable. He looks like a family man. He looks like the type of person that a young lady can build a life with. He's going to marry her, and they're going to live in the Ur of the Chaldeans. They probably won't move more than about an hour away from their house. That's going to be who she's getting involved with. Then she's married to this guy, and all of a sudden she finds out he hears voices. He says God's talking to him, and you won't believe what God told him to do. Leave Ur of the Chaldeans, leave the home of your father, leave the family and the Thanksgivings and all those traditions that you're going to have, and go into this foreign land that I will show you. It's a promised land. You're going to inherit it. You don't know where you're going. Just follow the voice, And there she is. And the only person to go with is this nuisance little nephew called Lot. And they know he's going to cause trouble, But that's all the family they have. And it's from that one family that God says He's going to give children more than the stars in the sky. Today, we know that promise came true. Came true in God's time. When Abraham and Sarai were about 100 years old, they have this child, and how ridiculous that would happen. And so go with me as we look at Genesis 21, verse 1 through 3. Now, the background, the promise was started in Genesis chapter 12. You're going to be the father of many nations. The next event is Genesis 15. Abraham doesn't hold on to this promise anymore because, Sarah says, "Here's my handmaiden," and out of this comes Ishmael, probably a child that God never decided would come in, not a child of the promise. Then you get Genesis chapter 18, the messenger comes again and says, you and Sarah are going to have a child, and Sarah hears this. And she's laughing when she hears this. And you know what the Hebrew word for laughter is? Yitzchak. It sounds like laughter, doesn't it? Onomatopoeic word. Yitzchak. Isaac. That's what laughter is in Hebrew. Now you know a Hebrew word, Isaac. And this is what it says. After I'm worn, Sarah's saying this, after I'm worn out and my master is old, shall I have pleasure? Promises, promises, promises. But look at what is happening here in chapter 21. If we had time, we'd go through to verse 5. You'd see the culmination of everything. The Lord visited Sarah as He had said. Now, we talk about faith a lot. Abraham is the father of our faith, and we lose sight of what the word faith means. So forget about that for now and just understand the word faith is promises. Promises. Your faith rests on the promises of God. That's what faith is. As the Lord said, and the Lord did to Sarah as He had what, church? As He had promised. The first thing mothers need to teach children is promises. In 1988, no, was it 1988? It was 1982. I was going to war. Deween was going to Dallas, Texas, and she was going to do a special seminar on cradle roll with the Church of Christ on how to teach babies to love the Bible. And Jenna, they taught her, take the Bible like this with lamb's wool and rub it against the baby's cheek like a 1-week-old baby and have the baby stroke this wool-covered Bible and say, love the Bible. Bible precious. Bible precious. See, faith comes by hearing from the Word of God. The first thing a mother must teach a child is that God is faithful to His promises because the mother receives the promises of God. What mother hasn't promised or hasn't prayed for a baby? And then the mother prays for the baby, and the baby either comes like God intended, or it comes through where you choose or select a baby, or where you have spiritual children. But there will be children. It might not be like you thought it was going to be. But those promises, you pray for the baby, then you pray that the baby would be healthy, right? And you pray that everything in the process would go according to God's plan. And then what does God do, church? He delivers. He delivers on His promises. And that is the first lesson you need to turn over, because it says, and Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age, at the time of which God had spoken to him. In God's time, right? Promises in God's time, in God's way. Abraham called the name of his son, who was born to him, whom Sarah bore him. It's unbelievable. Sarah had his child. I mean, don't misunderstand it. No, Hagar did not have this baby. You know, it's emphasized because the promise of God was sure, and he called the name of this boy what? Laughter. You get it? He called it laughter, because when God gives us this little baby, and you look at this little baby, Chris, it's an absolute miracle, isn't it? I mean, they're miracles. They're just unbelievable. And that's what you need to convey. And so we look at the world, and we look at the promises of the world, and we know things don't always work according to the promises of the world. The arm of flesh will fail you. But when God is involved in a promise, that promise works out in God's way through these precious little children. And so here are 10 promises I would suggest a mother makes with her child, especially from when they're born. The first 5 years of information that's imprinted on those babies' minds, on those young children's minds, will live with them forever. So number 1, promise that you will discipline, not punish. You know, it gets really noisy. There's so much vibration. There's so much pressure. There's so much pain involved that sometimes you're going to want to, out of frustration, punish your child. Makes you feel good, but it does nothing for the child. Discipline corrects the child. It takes up to 2,000 times, between 2,000 and 20,000 times, when you tell a baby, do not put your finger in that electrical socket, before they're going to kind of listen to you. But you discipline them. Right, Dan? You know exactly what's going to happen if they do the wrong thing. You discipline. Number 2, I will ignite your imagination. I will read to you stories. I will tell you about Gideon. I will tell you about Samson. I will tell you about David and Goliath. I will light up your imagination. I will let you fail. I will let you fail. This is part of you maturing your child. Nature gives your child only so many lessons. And if you rescue your child every time from one of those lessons, then one day when you're not around, that lesson won't be like this. It's going to be huge. Number 4, I will be a good role model to you. And the role model that you want to be is that God fulfills His promises. Number 5, I will always make sure that you are loved. Another way of saying this is, I'll always make you feel loved. The world may turn its back on you, but I will always love you. Number 6, I will commit to deepening your understanding of Christianity. This is very important. If you were in Gideon's class this morning, you would understand how much our culture is trying to get our kids veered away. I will deepen your understanding in Christianity. Number 7, I will make a spiritual space for you in the house. I will make a spiritual space in the house. Mothers, do you have a place in your house or your yard that you can almost say, this is my God space? I know that we spent some time yesterday shopping for just the right cushion because Deween loves to sit under a swing. And that's just one of the places she feels really good. The other one is just outside the house overlooking the trees. And inside the house, I know there's a few places that she feels really good about life. And so you make that, mothers, you consciously make that. Number 8, I will study the Bible with you. Number 9, this is an important one. I will proactively and regularly ask you questions about your faith. I will proactively and regularly ask you questions about your faith. And number 10, I will ask you tough questions that you don't want to ask yourself. And I will ask you these questions before skeptics will ask you these questions. A while ago, Gage, we put a paper in front of you all as the teenagers, and we said, what would you want us to talk? And we came up with this really great list. And some of the topics were, why is there evil and suffering? What about all the contradictions in the Bible? What about those who never hear about Jesus? How can Jesus be the only way to God? And so on. Skeptics will ask your kids these questions we need to ask, not just teenagers in the last few years of them being teenagers. I think we need to start from when they're 9, 10, 11 years old, because it's becoming that much more invasive in their lives. But it's beautiful for me to look out today and to see the teenagers and the young adults with their mothers today, and to know that they chose to be here today. And not just that, I was looking over, I was standing right here during the song before the lesson, and I was seeing you actually sing with meaning in your hearts, and it was so, so rewarding. So the first lesson, the first phase of a mother is when you bring the child in, and the first thing you need to teach these children is promises. The next one is praise. You need to teach your children how to be thankful, how to be appreciative. There's nothing worse than having a child that is spoiled, that just says it's all about me, that is so ungrateful. And so that's the next thing. And again, let me emphasize, the first 5 years, you need to insist on these things in your child's life. And so we go to Mary. She's traveled a long way, and she's finally with Joseph in Bethlehem. There's no nice Hotel 6 for them to go and stay in, because that would be like a mansion for them right now. There's just this dingy little shed with some animals in it. There's no mother to help bring this baby into this world for Mary. The only person that she has to assist her is this carpenter with his rough hands. And he's going to be there. Oh, inside, it's quiet. The only sounds that you hear inside this shed are the sounds of the animals and the sounds of labor. Now, outside, you can go to the shepherds and you can go to the sheep, and you can see them being you can hear them being serenaded with angels. Isn't that amazing? Not in this room. Not in this room. You can go and you can look outside and it's bright. There's this incredible magnitude star lighting up everything. But inside that shed, it's dark and it's dingy. And you can see Mary, the first sound that she really focuses on is the sound of God in this world crying for the first time. She looks at this child. She looks, and it's dark. She barely makes out the silhouette of this little baby. And she tries to look into the eyes of this baby, and she realizes she's looking into the eyes of God. She's looking into the eyes of the King of Kings. She's looking into the eyes of one whose kingdom would know no end. And she looks over at Joseph. She can barely make him out. And she thinks to herself, and I know he must be thinking this, Are we going to raise this person? Are we going to raise this child? Where will we get the wisdom from? How are we possibly going to have to raise the Son of God? God the Savior. So read with me as we see what she says. The first words out of her mouth is what? It's thankfulness. It's appreciation. It's gratitude. It is praise. And Mary said, "My soul magnifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in" who? Church, do you see that? Do you see what she's saying there? I mean, not just hear the words, but think about what she's saying. This little baby that she's holding is who? It's God the Savior. You get that? My spirit rejoices in God my Savior, for he has looked on the humble estate of his servant. For behold, from now on, all generations will call me blessed. Last Sunday, we got the good news that Romeo is a granddad. And I've teased Romeo a little bit about that because, Romeo, that's pretty amazing, isn't it? Matthew, Robert Lilly. On Friday, I needed a picture from her. Actually, Thursday morning. I scoured all over. I couldn't find a picture of her and the baby. And so I said, "Kim, could you send me a picture?" And this is the one that came just like half an hour later. I don't know how she managed to take this one. But if you look at that picture, what is the message that she's giving to the world? What's the message that she's going to give to her child as she raises her child? What kind of a child is that going to be? Can you see it, church? I mean, you've got to be blind not to see it, right? She's thankful. She's thankful to who? She's thankful to God. And so here are 7 things that you need to teach your children if you want them to be grateful, if you want them to be thankful. Number 1, be an example of gratitude. Just like that. Be an example of gratitude. Number 2, link gratitude to God. Link gratitude to God. Number 3, don't shower them with stuff. Don't spoil them. Number 4, have them pitch in when they really want something. Number 5, keep thank you notes on hand. Number 6, insist on politeness and respect. And number 7, encourage them to say it is more blessed to give than receive. This is the words of Jesus in Acts chapter 20, verse 35. I was taken aback a little bit as I was reading this list because little Benny was just glued on that thing. And I think he paid attention until I said, don't shower them with stuff, and then he lost interest. I know the children are always going to want whatever you're going to give them. But you as parents need to say, at the end of the day, I want my children to know promises of God. I want them to know, even though sometimes I doubted God would come through when the arm of flesh was failing me or whatever circumstances you find yourself in, but God never let me down. God always comes through with His promises. And the second thing I want them to know about praise, but church, we have to go on and look at something we don't want to look at. If you're a mother and you really love with all your heart, you know there's going to come a day when you're going to have to prepare them for pain. And so you need to build resilience into their lives. It's easy for us just to run down to Walmart and get a Hallmark card and say, Happy Mother's Day, isn't it? But look what Jesus does. He gives His mother something tangible, something that will reach even beyond the grave. This week, Darwin and I were talking about a little child that's going to grow up without a dad. The dad died at the age of 32. This week, I had a mother who lost her child also in his 30s to a very fast-growing cancer. And that happened 2 years almost to the day, and she is struggling so hard to get over this. And so sometimes it's the mothers letting go of their children, sometimes it's the children letting go of their mothers. But because that bond is so tight between the mothers and their children, it's hard for them to come to grips with their emotions on it. But standing by the cross of Jesus were His mother and His mother's sister, Mary the wife of Clopas and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus is dying on the cross here, when Jesus saw His mother and the disciple whom He loved, that's John. John was the youngest disciple. John would never die a martyr's death. He would die of old age because he needed to stay alive to take care of what we're going to read here, Jesus' mother. And he saw the disciple whom he loved standing nearby. He said to his mother, Woman, behold your son. Then he said to his disciple, Behold your mother. And from that hour, the disciple took her to his own home. This is not just a little card, is it? This is a challenge for all of us. This is the Son of God saying, do something tangible if you still can for your mother. Tell her how much you love her. Show her your love. Life is going to be very hard. And so how do we go about doing this? The last few things that I have here is how can you model resilience in your kids? How can you teach them to bounce back? Because it's really, really hard to bounce back when you've lost somebody so close to you. Number one, model how you handle stress and disappointment. Mothers, do you ever have stress or disappointment in your lives? How do you handle it? However you handle it, you're teaching these children. Number two, decatastrophize situations that are really bad. You know, things happen to us. Life happens. We can't prevent life from happening. Last night we heard something about Ben's blood results that was quite a take-back for us. And he still has to do some really intensive tests. But there's a really good chance he has autoimmune disease. And he might have to have surgery pretty soon. Life happens, church. Life happens. But how do you deal with these things? How do you build resilience into your families, into your children, into yourself? Teach them what they can do and show them what they can do, not what they cannot do. Don't let them focus on the glass half empty, but rather half full. Number 3, don't rush to rescue. We've talked about this one before. Try to listen and encourage without taking over. Number 4, listen. And if you really want to listen correctly, listen without judging. Try to put yourself in your child's shoes or in the person's shoes that you're trying to help. And the last one, and probably the most important one, is rely on God. These are the 3 major things that our mothers go through. They go through the bringing children into this world, and then from that they learn the promises of God. They go through rearing their children, the ups and the downs, and from that they come across with praise, tremendous praise, and they have to deal with pain. When I went to hospice yesterday to see Will, I thought, because of this lesson, that, inside this place here, there are probably some children and their mothers here today. And I thought the reverse is true as well. There are probably some mothers here that are leaving this world, and there's some children here. And it's very hard for us to believe that moments after our loved ones leave this world, they loose from the gravitational pull, but it's not the gravitational pull of the world. It's a spiritual, the physical pull of the flesh, right, Gideon? They loose and they free from that. And the moment they free from that, they're laughing. And we stuck this side of the veil and we can't see that, you see? But if we could, we'd see their happiness, we'd see their joy, we would see God coming and wiping away their tears, and there'll be no more tears after that moment. You see, but we struggle to notice that, don't we? But it's there. And so today, I want to give you something tangible. My mother, all our mothers who've gone on ahead, and every mother who is here today, would want to know from us, have we been to Jesus? Have we died with Jesus on His cross? Have we been buried with Him in His tomb? Have we resurrected from His tomb? And you say, Neville, how can that be? It's 2,000 years later. I can't do that. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. In baptism, you can die with Jesus on the cross. In baptism, you can be buried with Him. In baptism, you can resurrect to walk a new life. You can do that. And if you've not done that, then you can do something tangible for your mothers, no matter where they are. And you can do it today. However, if you've separated from where your mother is, if you're separated from the love of God that your mother would have, and you've allowed something else to come into your life, then come back to Jesus. Let His blood wash you again through simple confession. Walk in the light as He's in the light. And the blood of His Son will continue to cleanse you all the days of your life. Have you been to Jesus for the cleansing power? Are you washed by the blood of the Lamb? If you want to respond to this invitation, I know you'll be doing something tangible. Please do so right now as together we stand and sing.